Welcome back to Balls and All here on Mix 104.9. Just a quick shout out to Damien Zammit out there who said he's listening to the show, former Buffaloes coach, a very underrated coach. I hope he makes a return to the NTFL coaching ranks, Mr. Zammit.
He coached me, you know.
Did he?
Yeah, in one of my very few Premier League games.
And how was he?
I really liked him. I thought he was an awesome coach.
That's
He's a
not
very, very good development coach, in my opinion.
That's not what you said off air. But nah, Damien, yeah, hello. Anyway, Jacob, great to have you back here, mate. You pumped up this show. We love your engagement on Facebook. You always give me a rap and give Mix 104.9 a rap, but you did give me a little bit of a clip over the ear saying that I was a bit of a wannabe UFC fighter. Mate, I couldn't fight my way out of a wet paper bag. I've got an amateur boxing record of 0-1, so I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. But one thing that I am very fascinated about is cutting weight. So a lot of UFC fighters, and you listen to all their interviews, and it's not just UFC fighters, it's jockeys and boxers and any sport that has weight as the limit. They talk about that the battle isn't in the arena itself or the ring itself. Sometimes it's the battle with themselves and their weight to get down to, like, some of these guys cut ridiculous weights, and I'll talk about that a little bit shortly. But how is it done, Jacob?
Yeah, so I like to talk about weight loss as being mostly or 80% nutrition, 20% exercise, and it's essentially the same kind of thing. It is a lot of nutrition. So I was talking to Simon Bates about this last night, whose dad is a famous jockey, horse trainer here in Darwin, and I don't know if he was a former jockey, but I thought Simon would have a few ideas on it, and we talked about different things in regards to his own challenges with different food intolerances, and in particular lactose and gluten. And if you see him now, in the last 12 to 18 months, he has completely ripped down and looks amazing, and he's been able to maintain it for pretty much 18 months. And so essentially, to lose that weight, you don't want to lose it really quickly. So the general guidelines are that you don't leave it all to the last week or even the last couple of weeks and then try and rip down then, because first of all, your performance is probably not going to be that good anyway, because you've all of a sudden changed your whole body composition. Chances are you're probably not fully nourished as well, and it's also just not healthy. So you want to drop your weight incrementally over your training period so that you hit your peak at the time that you do want to peak physically for your competition or event or whatever it might be. And so in the same time as doing that and cutting down with nutrition and through exercise, you want to also make sure you stay really well hydrated. So the types of things you might be doing in regards to nutrition is eating heaps of veggies. So lots of broccoli and Brussels sprouts and asparagus and stuff like that. So steamed veggies, fresh vegetables where possible, lots of water, and you'd probably be also wanting to keep your protein intake up as well. So lots of fish, which is not only high in protein but also in healthy fats, omega-3 in particular, a lot of people know about, as well as other meats, you know, chicken and red meat and stuff like that. So you definitely would be cutting out carbohydrates in regards to pasta and breads, and I always like to say that you should cut them out anyway, and that's the secret to people like Batesy, who are able to cut and get ripped and then maintain that over a long period of time. It is possible. It's essentially a paleo diet.
Jacob, how much weight can you lose? So, as I've said about 412,000 times, I do follow the UFC very closely, and one of the potential matchups coming this year could be a Russian guy, Khabib Nurmagomedov, taking on everyone's favourite Conor McGregor. Now, Conor is the 155-pound champion, which is roughly, you might know more than me, at about 70 to 71 kilos. Nurmagomedov is a Russian guy, as I said before, a really thick-set guy with a background in wrestling, or sambo or whatever it's called in Russia. But he walks around at 194 pounds, which is about 88 kilos, and he seems to say that he's got no dramas at all making that weight. Conor's gone between 145 and 170. There's a wrestler, it's not a wrestler, I'm thinking about my WWE fan days, but there's a fighter named Cyborg, a woman fighter, she'll be fighting in the 145 pound division, but she has fought at 140 pounds before, and she walks around at about 175 pounds. So we're talking about athletes supposedly cutting upwards of 30 to 40 pounds, and like I said, that's what, 18-ish kilos in a very short amount of time. So surely that has got to be dangerous for you. And I want to know from your own example, and I know being a scientific guy like yourself, you have noticed before athletes, local athletes, whether it's say NT Thunder or Wanderers Football Club, where they take their weights before the game and then take it after. So I want to know from your example, how much weight have you seen people lose in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, well, in those examples, in a game, pre and post game, that's hydration, so that's losing water, and you don't want to be losing water to get down for a fight. It might be that you do possibly not eat and not drink before a weigh-in to lose that extra maybe kilo, potentially even 2 kilos if you're sitting on the border. But what these guys are trying to lose is fat. They're not trying to lose water. That would be not good for them.
But I mean, how much water weight? Because they would differ. They're losing fat and whatever they don't need on their bodies, but most of it is water weight when they're weighing in, because you see their training methods and they're doing workouts in saunas and wearing the old traditional boxing when they run in the raincoats and that sort of stuff. So I'm not saying for everyone out there listening to this, we don't want to lose water weight, because who cares whether you're 72 kilos, when you're dehydrated, sort of thing. So I just want to know, how much water weight can you strip off you pre-weighing?
Oh, well, you could lose a couple of kilos. You can actually lose up around 5 or 6 kilos depending on what you've done. And essentially that's what they're trying to do to get that last little bit off. They're going to put that back on before their event. But they're essentially trying to get that last little bit off to get them under. So they want to be as close to that maximum that they can be, if not possibly over, when it comes to the to game day, to event day. But you can actually, like I said, lose around 5 kilos. So typically you'll lose, like in a game of NFL football here, you'll lose 3 kilos. And it's interesting, the bigger the guy or the woman, the more weight they generally lose. So you look at a ruckman and they will, on average, and this is really interesting actually, and I was talking about this last night, Caucasian ruckmen, Caucasian big guys will lose minimum 3 kilos in every game in my experience. Whereas indigenous bigger guys or other or darker skinned individuals who are bigger in the body don't typically lose as much, which is really interesting. So I'm thinking of people of Fijian descent or Maori descent or indigenous Australian people. They will not lose as much, which I find really interesting. And so it's something I was saying last night, I wanted to do some research on it, because it's just amazing that Caucasian big people will typically lose minimum 3 kilos in a game of NTFL footy, whereas the darker skinned guys will lose, be lucky to lose 1 or 2.
Well, that's crazy. So,